All right. Anybody not ready? Okay. All right. Good afternoon. We're here today to discuss the arrests of 13 individuals on drug trafficking charges. After a year-long investigation that began last summer, this past Friday, we served several search warrants and seized a substantial amount of drugs that had arrived here in Pinellas County from a source of supply in California. And since last Friday, we have charged 13 people with multiple drug trafficking offenses. The investigation has been and continues to be ongoing, and we anticipate additional arrests as further evidence is developed. Over the course of a few hours last Friday morning, we seized numerous drugs, primarily from a stash house located at an apartment complex in the area of US 19 and Roosevelt Boulevard in Largo. And last Friday morning, the drugs that we seized out of this one apartment included 54 pounds of methamphetamine, 21 pounds of cocaine, 2 pounds of black tar heroin, almost 2 pounds of fentanyl, 11 pounds of marijuana, 3 guns, and about $57,000 in cash. At the same time that the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office executed these search warrants and made these seizures, began making the arrests, the St. Petersburg Police Department also began serving search warrants and making arrests in a parallel investigation. The overlap between the St. Petersburg Police Department investigation and our investigation involved some of the same subjects who were buying and selling drugs. The St. Pete Police Department investigation also uncovered a substantial dogfighting ring, and Chief Holloway is here and he'll discuss their investigation in a moment. Also here with us today is Florida Department of Law Enforcement Commissioner Mark Glass, and he'll speak about the state's SAFE grant funding to local law enforcement, which helps produce results like those seen in both of these cases. And we also had some arrests and some enforcement activity over in Tampa that FDLE agents assisted us with. So this investigation that I'm going to talk about by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office began last summer when we received information that a person by the name of D'Angelo Woods was trafficking kilograms of cocaine throughout Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. And the information that we obtained at that time was that Woods was selling up to 20 kilograms of cocaine every 2 weeks. So for context, a kilogram of cocaine is about 2.2 pounds of cocaine, and the wholesale cost today in Pinellas County or in the Tampa Bay area for a kilogram of cocaine is about $17,000. So I'm going to just talk about the price of these drugs for a second, and it seems like every time that we do one of these press conferences and announce one of these substantial investigations, I talk about the cost of the drugs. And what I tell you is the cost of the drugs is way too low. And I'm going to tell you again, the cost of the drugs is way too low, and that means that we got a failure. And the failure is there's too much drugs out there, there's too many coming across the border, and the supply is so great out there, and there's so much that the price is low. It's all about supply and demand. And you know, if you go back 10, 15 years, 20, 25 years, the cost of a kilogram of cocaine, you know, back in the 80s, these are 1980s prices, and you go into the 90s, early 2000s, and the prices were up there, $35,000, $40,000 a kilo. There's an investigation going on right now in Pinellas. I was talking to somebody else this morning about it, where they're buying kilograms of cocaine for $14,000. That's nuts. That's 1980s. That's Medellin cartel prices. That's where the stuff was coming in South Florida and by the boatload. So it tells us that there's a lot of drugs on the street. And when we talk about fentanyl is going for about $100 a gram, about $30,000 a kilo, and those prices are going down. They're not going up. They need to go up. And so it shows that we got a really serious drug problem in this country. And what it comes from is there's too many drugs coming in, and we know where they're coming from. They're coming primarily from the border. And so this is a significant issue that we face throughout the country. So getting back to this investigation, after we received this information about what Woods was doing, we were able to introduce an undercover detective from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office to him. And during the course of that undercover investigation, between February and July of 2024, the undercover detective made purchases directly from Woods, hand-to-hand from Woods, on 9 separate occasions, and purchased in total about 2 kilograms of cocaine and about a pound of methamphetamine. And Woods was selling pounds of methamphetamine for about $1,500 each. Through the investigation, we determined that Woods had a local source of supply, and that local source of supply is a local known drug trafficker by the name of Matthew Turner. Turner, which is no shock, has an extensive criminal history, including arrests for attempted murder, threats to a law enforcement officer, and battery on a law enforcement officer. As the investigation unfolded, we determined that Matthew Turner was obtaining cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and heroin from a source of supply in the Los Angeles, California area. That source of supply would send boxes via UPS and FedEx to Tanya Rodriguez at an address in Brandon over in eastern Hillsborough County. Turner would obtain the boxes containing the drugs from Rodriguez. So they were shipped via UPS and FedEx from Southern California to Rodriguez's home. At one point, the Department of Homeland Security, HSI, seized a box, and it contained 10 pounds of methamphetamine that was destined for Rodriguez's home. Now, this California source of supply, in addition to sending the drugs here locally to Rodriguez at her home in Brandon, would also send a woman by the name of Jasmine Silva, who lives in Southern California, who she has identified or talked about as being her brother. We don't know if it's really her brother or not, but this is the person who was sending her here. And she would fly in and she would rent Airbnbs throughout the Pinellas County area. So she would check in, if you will, to the Airbnbs. The next thing you know, you see these UPS trucks and FedEx trucks showing up. So she was getting deliveries from the source when she arrived here, like Rodriguez was getting, and all those boxes contained the drugs. And Henry Smith is another person who we identified, and Turner, along with Henry Smith, and Henry Smith is Turner's right-hand man, they would get the drugs out of these, in the case of Silva, the Airbnb places, in the case of Rodriguez, her home in Brandon, and deliver them to a stash house, and primarily the stash house that we identified at that apartment complex in the area of US 19 and Roosevelt Boulevard, where they would process the drugs into smaller amounts and sell them throughout Pinellas County via various distributors. So in addition to Woods and Smith, we identified the following individuals as drug distributors for Turner. They are Marvin Baxter, Gerald Betzel, Steve Horn, Javarian Keaton, Murad Saeed, Michael Turner, and John Wallace. And I'll show you a slide here in a minute with these people on it. And most all of these people, again, it's not a shock, same thing we see all the time, they have very, very extensive criminal histories. So, as is the case with people that are engaged in drug trafficking activities, they don't limit themselves to one source of supply. They often have multiple sources of supply, so when one's out, they go to the other and they flip back and forth. And that's what was happening in this case as it related to Woods. Remember, Woods is under Turner. Turner's the guy that's getting it out of California. Woods is getting it from Turner, and then Woods is putting it on the street here. But we also identified that Woods had a source of supply by the name of Contez Caldwell. And you're going to hear more about Caldwell from Chief Holloway in a moment. So from August of 23 to July of 24, again, summer to summer, the evidence shows over this year period, multiple deliveries were made to locations in Pinellas County, as well as Rodriguez's home in Brandon from this California source of supply. And that this Pinellas County-based drug trafficking organization obtained and distributed here in Pinellas County about 220 kilograms of cocaine, 660 pounds of methamphetamine, 25 kilograms of fentanyl, 5.5 kilograms of black tar heroin, and 14 kilograms of MDMA. So to put some numbers to that, it's about $3.7 million worth of cocaine wholesale. That's at the kilo level. That's not when they take it and they cut it and they ounce it out and they gram it out and they put it in 8 balls and they're distributed it out there. And about $750,000 worth of fentanyl. And I don't have to tell you, I think everybody's well familiar now with how deadly fentanyl is. And when you're talking about that amount of fentanyl getting on the streets of Pinellas County, it's staggering. And as I said, with the prices being down and the amount of drugs that are out there, it should give everybody a lot of pause and a lot of concern. I want to show you some photos now. We can go through these before I turn it over to Chief Holloway. Go ahead and these are the people, and we'll give you all copies of this for the media. These are the people that were part of the investigation who were arrested. These are photographs of the kilograms of cocaine that we seized from that stash house at US 19 in East Bay last Friday morning. Go ahead to the next one. This is photographs of the pounds of methamphetamine. So what we saw last Thursday night into Friday morning, we saw Rodriguez. She left her house over there in Brandon, and she came over here to the Airbnb where Silva was staying. It's just to the west of us over here in Largo. And you can see that box up there in the upper right-hand corner. And they got a little, as we would call it, hanked up. They got a little suspicious. They thought we might have been onto them, but nonetheless, they had all these drugs, and they were trying to get it out on the street. So Rodriguez, getting kind of cautious, is that we got her going to a store over in Brandon, and she brought wrapping paper for a kid's birthday. And so she took the box that she received earlier in the day to her house, and she wrapped it in that wrapping paper and took a Uber from her house over to this Airbnb and delivered it to Silva, and then that's when somebody went over and picked it up. So they were going to some pretty great lengths here. This came out of the boxes. You can see the pry bar that's there because they had the wooden boxes, and it had a lot of wax and all kinds of other material in it, and then all those, when they were shipping FedEx and UPS, they were double crated in there and they were double boxed as they were shipping them. So we had to pry those boxes open. Go ahead to the next one. Again, just pictures of more of the drugs, the fentanyl and the meth. Go ahead. And we also seized 3 guns, as you can see here, an AR-15 and a couple handguns that were taken out of the stash house. The stash house had a lot of what we call cutting material, which would expand the drugs, and you take those kilos and then they turn them into smaller amounts and ounces and grams. It had a lot of processing material in there so that they could also, if they wanted to, and they looked like they were kind of rewrapping the kilos because that's how they make more money, because they put additives or cut into the drugs to extend them out. So go ahead, I think that's good. These pictures here are of some of the main players. This is Matthew Turner. Again, as I said, he has an extensive criminal history. You can see what's there. We have a list here of all of the charges that these people were charged with. This is a plethora, and they're charged with everything from armed trafficking all the way down to use of a communication device, but all of them are charged with multiple counts. Go ahead. And this is Henry Smith. Again, that's Matthew Turner's right-hand man. He was primarily responsible for managing the distribution to the lower level people. Go ahead. And that's Tanya Rodriguez. She's the one that was living over in Brandon. She's the one that would receive the shipments from the source of supply in California via UPS and FedEx, and then Smith and or Turner would pick up the drugs from her, take them to the stash house. And then the last photo here is of Silva. And she, again, lived, now she's living at the Pinellas County Jail, but she lived in Southern California in Los Angeles, and she would fly in here, rent the Airbnb, get the drugs, give them to Smith and Turner, pick up money, and take it back to Southern California. So to do these types of cases, it takes a team effort, a lot of people that are involved in making these cases successful. And I also want to recognize the partnership with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the St. Pete Police Department, but also the State Attorney's Office. And State Attorney Bruce Bartlett and his team were instrumental in us being able to get search warrants and all kinds of other court orders we needed, and particularly Chris Billings and Eric Lipton, who are Assistant State Attorneys. And they were out there with us all night throughout this investigation, and were instrumental in bringing these cases to a successful conclusion. So it really is a big team effort. We got a lot of drugs off the street, a lot of bad guys off the street, and as you can see from these charges, they're looking at significant minimum mandatory sentences, and hopefully for a lot of them, they'll go away for not their lives, a substantial portion of it, and get them off the street. But we got to figure something out, because as these prices show, there's a lot of drugs out there, and there's a lot of people selling dope. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Holloway, and then you'll hear from Commissioner Glass.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I just want to echo exactly what Sheriff Gualtieri was talking about, is the partnership here in Pinellas County, not only with the State Attorney's Office, but also with Commissioner Glass. Word I want to say before we get started is, you want to bring your drugs to Pinellas County, you want to sell here, it's just a matter of time, and we got time on our side. And what I mean by that is, we may not get you today, we may not get you tomorrow, But sooner or later, we're going to come knocking on your door, or we're going to flashbang your door, and we're going to take you out of Pinellas County because we do not want that in our area. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is really about our part of the case where we worked along with the Sheriff's Office and FDLE. First thing I want to say is dogfighting is brutal, inhumane, practice that inflicts immense pain and suffering on innocent animals. And that's what we start looking at, what these guys and what these men and women were doing to the animals in our area. So back in November of 23, our narcotics unit started working with FDLE because we knew a subject by the name of Mr. Small. He was a known fentanyl and cocaine trafficker in our area, and he had several associates. The detectives did a great job. They started following Mr. Small around and his associate, and they were able to identify numerous locations. But the issue was Mr. Small moved from day to day because he was afraid that he was going to get caught, but the detectives did a great job and continued to follow Small around. During that investigation, they found out not only was Mr. Small selling narcotics, but there was a drug operation going on. You're going to hear more about that in a few minutes about Mr. Coswell that was involved in it. So in April of 2024 of this year, we began a long-term investigation, not only looking at Mr. Small for the narcotics, but we also started looking at the dogfighting operation. And that's where we were able to identify Coswell as the person that was leading on this dogfighting. Now, it was not only here in Hillsborough, in Pinellas County. They were doing dogfighting in Hillsborough County, Manatee, Apalachicola County, and also in Georgia. They were moving these dogs all about. So I'm going to show you a video right now to show you exactly how they had it set up. So last week on July 18th, we did a raid. These were the animals that we found there. As you can see in the backyard, they had kennels set up. Kennels set up for this operation. We recovered more than 111 dogs. 111 dogs that were used for this dog fighting. The apparatus you see there, that was the apparatus they used for breeding the dogs. The other apparatus you see are treadmills where they would train the dogs so the dogs would have long and be able to fight for a long period of time. I want you to take a look at this picture. I want you to remember this picture right here. This is what a dog looked like in 2023, and look at this dog right now. So as the sheriff was saying earlier, these narcotics are more than just about narcotics. It has to deal with human trafficking. It has to deal with our shootings. It has to deal with just about any crime that you can predict in Pinellas County. It goes back to this drugs. Because like the sheriff is saying, drugs are too cheap. And people will do anything to make sure they can sell it on our street. So on July the 18th, we executed 6 search warrants. And again, like I said, we recovered 111 dogs, dog fighting paraphernalia and evidence, and narcotics during the search warrant. And 6 subjects were charged with animal baiting and fighting. They were also charged with conspiracy to do gambling because it was also part of a huge gambling operation. Small primary resident that we hit the night before was a 3900 block of 12th Avenue North. There were 11 subjects inside that home. Of those 11 subjects, 6 people were rescued for human trafficking. The other 5 were charged with trafficking in narcotics, fentanyl, and what happened was when we hit the house, we found some narcotics in the home, and then as we continued to do our search, what they did was they buried the fentanyl and the cocaine in the backyard, and we were able to recover the narcotics from there. You can see that list over there. The partnership is great here in Pinellas County, and I only can speak for Pinellas County. And like I said earlier, you want to come in our city or our county and deal, we're going to get you. Like I said, maybe not today. And like the sheriff said, it's cheap. So we got to put more officers out there, and detectives out there, so we can do this job. Because we're going to try our best to eradicate this problem out of our area. And in reference to the dogs, those are voiceless. Those detectives did a great job because just think we were at 111 dogs that were being killed or being mutilated every day because they were using that money from fentanyl to do dog fighting, to do human trafficking. anything you want to name, you can name it to that. And part of the reason why we're able to do this is thanks to Commissioner Glass and FDLE for Operation Safe Grant, because we can afford to do that. And through his organization, we were able to do grant funding where we're able to pay our detectives and also be able to pay to purchase narcotics. So with that, Commissioner Glass.
I'm FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass, and if that doesn't choke you up, I don't know what will. Fentanyl is killing our people in this state. And I'm honored to be on stage here with Chief Holloway and Sheriff Galtieri with the fine leadership you have here in Pinellas County and the partnership we have. As you see here, we got the 3 SEALs here. That's happening all across our state, primarily because of the SAFE grant. It's probably one of the best criminal justice tools that we've had in a long time. And I want to thank Governor Ron DeSantis for the statewide assistance in fentanyl eradication and the lawmakers who provided support in this great, great program. Like he said, we're able to provide investigative techniques, equipment, overtime, where normally one agency, they would be tapped out early, and you just would have to take the low-hanging fruit on the bust. No more. For Governor DeSantis, our cabinet, and our legislators, they are protecting your community. And we are protecting your community together. And you have strong leadership here in this county. And I want to say, great work for your officers, great work for your deputies, and our agents jumping in, and the analysts that are tirelessly working all night long to ensure that they can track down these horrific people that do these things. And when we do these type of investigations, it's just not one thing that we do. It's this drug that's coming in, and we know it's here. You heard the numbers. I mean, it's cheap. I mean, supply and demand, right? So, but it lead to other criminal activities, such you're seeing here with the dog fighting. I mean, that's just inhumane. It gets down to the brass tacks of it. It's inhumane. But when you are pushing this type of narcotic around, such as fentanyl, lacing it with all the other drugs they got in this bust, I'm just going to give you a number. And I was here with the Attorney General not too long ago. 7 to 9 grains of salt. Pull them out on your table at your house. Get your magnifying glass and a sharp knife and kind of separate 7 to 9. That's what kills you. So when he's talking about the weight they're pushing here, think about how many individuals that kills. We talked about Airbnb. They're using Airbnbs that you would use to go visit family, go do things, right? Do you want that remnant laying around in the Airbnb? No, you don't. We had that happen last year with a young baby crawling around on the floor. And 7 to 9 grams touching the skin and getting ingested into that child lost his life to fentanyl. Ladies and gentlemen, fentanyl is here. And these great men and women that work in law enforcement community and our other entities that help, such as resources to take down extensive criminal organizations, such as the task forces you have in this area, which is one of the human trafficking strike teams that come into play, providing services to the chief and the sheriff when they need it for these victims and these other things that happen, and working with the Attorney General's office in the strike teams has been amazing. But let's not be kidding ourselves. This is something we all as a community, it affects. It's just not one segment of the community. It's just not somebody on the other side of the tracks. It's affecting you. You heard where the sheriff said they were doing buys at, or where they were doing the sales and they were doing the transport. Do you ride an Uber? I do sometimes. So you see how the movement is happening. It will affect everything about us as a community. And we would be remiss as citizens if we do not try to do something to help stop this problem in our community. And again, I want to say the lawmakers and Governor DeSantis and the cabinet are truly, truly working for law enforcement community. They want to see this stuff stopped. And I'm honored to be here with these great leaders here that you have in your county. And I will support you, Sheriff and Chief, and all the other chiefs here in this Pinellas County. If we got it, and I know we got more cases running, so I just want to say there's more to come, more to follow. and you'll see that all across the state this remaining year. So thank you. Sheriff?
All right, so if anybody has any questions for me or Chief Holloway or Commissioner Glass, we're happy to take them. Yeah.
I don't pretend to understand the macroeconomics of the global drug
Yeah.
industry, but when you say the price is too low right now, it means to me that either the demand is low or the supply is too high, and that, so are drug cartels producing too much drugs, and how is that
Yeah, the
going
supply.
down into the local sales market?
Yeah, so the supply is too high. It means there's too much, the demand is high, but the supply is even higher, okay, and greater. So there's so much of it out there. And, you know, it's just like anything else. When you see the price go up, it means that it is scarce or scarcer, and it's harder to get, and there's much more competition out there for it. But you're just seeing floods of it. And it is, we're talking today about kilograms of cocaine, the way we used to talk about ounces. And, you know, again, think about it. It's about 35 ounces in a kilo, 2.2 pounds in a kilo, whatever you want, however you want to convert the metric to U.S. But it's a lot of drugs. And so as we're doing these investigations, well, we used to see people talking about, you can get an ounce of cocaine for, you know, $1,500 or something. And that was, you get a couple of those, that's a good case. Today, it's all about kilos. So it shows how the weights are up, and really what it comes down to as well is it comes down to supply, but it also, the other part of that equation we're talking about is demand. And why is there so much demand? And there's so much demand because there's so much addiction. And that's a whole other part of the discussion, is you have so many people out there, and you know, they're hurting. People with co-occurring disorders of behavioral health, mental health, addiction, substance abuse, and those co-occurring disorders because people are wanting it, and especially with fentanyl. And the reason why we've talked about this so many times, the reason why fentanyl is in such demand is because it's cheap and it's a very, very good, clean high, and so people want it. And that's why there's a demand for it, but there's so much of it, and it's because it's coming in. You know, it's all coming in through Mexico. It's coming in through the border. Yes, some of it is coming directly with the fentanyl from Southeast Asia, but most of it's coming into Central America, South America, and coming up that way. And, you know, you can call it whatever you want. People can say whatever they want, but the fact is, when you have this open border to the extent we do, it is causing an open market, and we are seeing the effects of it across the country, including here in Pinellas County, on the streets of St. Petersburg, streets of Clearwater, streets of Largo, and there's way too much dope out there. And again, when you have the demand and you have the supply, and it's cheap, you know, and if we get into the number of overdose calls that we respond to on a daily basis, the number of overdose deaths on a daily basis, the number of Narcan administrations on a daily basis, it's staggering, absolutely staggering. So it's a major issue.
Sheriff, when it comes to the size of these arrests, there's so many of them. Do you expect that there will be, over the next couple of weeks and months, a decrease in the amount of illegal activity and other drugs that are going on? In other words, how much of the market were these people responsible for?
They're moving a lot of drugs, but there's a lot of people out there that are doing the exact same thing. You know, it's what they do. You know, go get a job. Stop killing people. But they don't operate that way. I mean, look at the few I put up here and look at their criminal histories. You know, these are people that, you know, they're bad guys. They're criminals. They've been doing this. This is what they do. So we put them away, and they get 15-year minimum mandatories, 20-year minimum mandatories, 25-year, and you know, way too many times even with that, they get out and they go right back to it again. So, you know, it really is a cycle. And as far as, you know, I wish I could tell you that as a result of this, you're going to see the price of cocaine, fentanyl, heroin go up. You're not. Because this is really just it's a good case. They're great cases. And as Commissioner Glass said, we've got a lot of them going on. But, you know, since the last time we were here and we had one like this as a result of a multi-agency and substantial investigation, the price then of fentanyl was more than it is today. So it's you know, we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep holding people accountable. And if, you know, they want to get caught and spend 15, 20, 25 years, 30 years on minimum mandatories, remember in Florida, you got to do 85% of your time, so you're going away, you're going to spend that time. And we're going to put you away, but to answer your question, is a lot of people out there doing it. This isn't going to change the market.
Those
It's substantial, there's no question about it, but there's a lot of it out there and a lot of people doing it.
Chief, I just wanted to ask about the dog fighting. Who was participating in this? Were they bringing people from the community in, or was it just amongst the people you arrested? How did this all work?
So that's a great question. Let me add on one thing to the sheriff. Want to add on what you asked about. The men and women you see here in this room is getting crazy. That's the best way of putting it. The sheriff and I both have a lot of years on. And this is the first time I can tell you, in over 36 years, we executed 20 search warrants in one day. 20. You've been to our press conference. He does one, I do two. 20 in one day. This dog fighting ring, it was everywhere. I told you the 4 counties that we're aware of. It wasn't just the people that were selling drugs. You know, talking to our experts here, it costs you $200 to go watch a dog fight. That's what you pay to go see this dog fight. They set up a meeting. We're going to have it today in Hillsborough County. Bring your dog there. The fight takes place. You saw what happened to that beautiful puppy for 1 year. Then they throw that puppy away and get another dog. So this fentanyl, this drug thing, it affects everything. Because they're training dogs because they're making money off the drugs, and then they're going out and getting involved in other stuff. So it's not just the people we got up on this board for arrest. It's people out there in the community. There are wealthy people that are paying to go watch these dog fights.
Being done in people's backyards and all over the parks.
The dogs were in the backyards of these homes, but they can say, meet me at Park B tomorrow. Bring your dog, and that's where it's going to happen.
I guess I don't understand the connection here between the drug bust and the dog ring. What is the commonality of the thread?
Fentanyl. They were selling the drugs, and then they're using the drugs to buy the dogs, to raise the dogs, to make more money off of it. So my team's doing something, his team doing something, and it comes all the way back into fentanyl. We talked about Caldwell. He was doing both. He actually ran the dog fighting ring, but he was also distributing narcotics. The people that were working for him were selling drugs and doing dog fighting.
Were people who were attending these events, now I hate to use that word, but were people who were going to these dog fights, were they then drug users as well? Was that what was, you know?
So a couple ways the dog fighting can happen. You and I can do it over money. We can do it over cocaine. We can do it over fentanyl. It's whatever you're willing to pay. So you bring your dog, I bring my dog. Okay, our 2 dogs go at it. So the price of that match is maybe a pound of cocaine.
Chief, for the 111 dogs, what's next for them? Are they going to be up for adoption? Are they being released at the moment?
So we got a great partner here. What's going to happen is they'll be up for adoption. Some of our detectives want to adopt these dogs. If you saw in that picture, they are people friendly. They will fight other dogs. So we're hoping that we can take those 111 dogs and give them to good families so they can get a good home.
And for Sheriff, you said you started this investigation about a year ago. Was it a tip that came through? Were these folks that were just on your radar when you began your investigation?
Yeah, we received information from somebody that indicated that Woods was selling drugs. That's how it started. You know, and that's generally how these investigations start, is we receive information about something that somebody's doing.
How much money was the SAFE grant to help fund both of these operations?
Well, Commissioner, I think the amount statewide is about $20 million is available. Now, how much, Commissioner Glass can speak to it. How about, there's hundreds of thousands.
So the first year that the governor put this in action, it was $25 million, and it didn't really get started off till, that was authorized in July of last year, so a year ago. So that was July of last year, but it didn't really start kicking off in the cases until about October. So we encumbered over almost $15 million by the end of June. Now, the legislators appropriated another $12 million for that this year, and we reappropriated the rest of to go along to this fiscal year. I also want to go back to your question. How do you judge if you're making a difference? If you look at my press conference with Attorney General on the medical examiner's report, if you look at the 6-month death rate of people died of fentanyl in 2021 to 22, and then you look at it compared to 2022-23, same 6 months, that was 550 people less died. So there was only 2,500 people, I'm saying that only, 2,500 people, primary cause of death was fentanyl, primary. So And that was a 500, I say 35 or 540 difference in deaths over since the previous year. Now, I just told you that because the fentanyl program really getting kicked off in October 2023. So now next year, I'd love to see what the stats are between all the great work these men and women are doing in the law enforcement community from the same time, January 1 to June 30th, and I guarantee you we're probably going to have a drastic reduction in fentanyl deaths, so as a primary cause. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, we're going to keep doing it, and to the people that are out there that are engaged in this, look over your shoulder, because we got many investigations that just like this that are in the pipeline, and as I said, this investigation is ongoing. I do anticipate that there'll be additional arrests, and we're going to keep at it, and we will keep chipping away at it, and hopefully, as the commissioner said, we'll start seeing some of the decreases in the deaths. But, we got to do something to stop the supply coming into this country at the same time. So, anybody have anything else? Any other questions? All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.